Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This episode is brought to you by Opill, the first over-the-counter daily birth control pill available in the U.S. Opill is FDA approved, full prescription strength and estrogen-free. Plus, there's no prescription needed. Finally, the days of needing a prescription for birth control are over. Opill is available online and at most major retailers. Take control of your health and reproductive journey with Opill. Birth control in your control. Use code BIRTHCONTROL for 25% off your first month of Opill at Opill.com.
Today, we're going to announce our Week 8 winners of our D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week presented by Hanson Ratings. And joining me is the creator of Hanson Ratings, Logan Hanson. Logan, been fun so far. It's great to be back here and talking about our coaches from our Week 8 games.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about our coaches and then just a little bit about Division III in general as the playoff picture is starting to take shape for 2024.
Yeah, and it's taking shape in a different way than it ever has been before. The playoffs have been expanded. We're adding 8 teams, and I'm sure as you run through your numbers each week, you're seeing a different dynamic than you ever have before.
Yeah, that's true. Kind of like in FBS, how they expanded their playoff from 4 to 12. In Division III this year, they expanded from 32 teams to 40 teams. So instead of only 4 at-larges like we had last year, this year there will be 12 at-larges. And then another change is across the board in Division III, the playoffs are being selected by a formula that's called NTI. So no longer committee selections, it's all based on a formula. So win probability, SOS, things like that go into that to select those 12 at-large bids. And it's really cool to see a lot of teams that a couple of years ago, with one loss would have still been on the outside looking in. And this year, most teams that are going to have one loss should make the playoffs. So if you have one loss to your conference champ and it's a close game and you feel like, man, I really would have liked to see what we could have done against some other playoff teams, this year, this new format, those teams are going to get that chance that they wouldn't have had in years past. And then there's more bowl games every single year. It seems like in Division III, there's a new bowl game series this year between the NCAC and HCAC and the President's Conference and the OAC. So more teams than ever are going to have postseason opportunities this year in Division III, and it's really exciting to follow.
Yeah, definitely. When you think about it, I mean, these are the guys who will never sit out a bowl game. They'll never sit out that postseason opportunity for anything else. They are there, first of all, for the pure love of the game. I know that we have Division III guys who do go on and play in the NFL and CFL and, different professional leagues, but they're still there purely out of the love of the game. And, it's good to see that we're giving the players and coaches more opportunities to do some things in the postseason.
Yeah, definitely. And, the places that are hosting playoff games and hosting these bowl games, they're doing everything they can to give these players that big time feel, even though, we are only playing Division III. Guys aren't getting scholarship money to play down here, but, it's still college football. The level of play is extremely high, and the guys playing care a lot.
Yeah, I think, as things continue to progress in the different things that come into the football world, I do think they'll start to get more spotlight on what they're doing. I know we've certainly have had a high interest in everything going on this season, and I feel like that's starting to happen a little bit more around the country.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see people paying attention to Division III that usually wouldn't have. Usually the only new fans of Division III are parents of freshmen, but it seems like a lot of people are paying attention this year.
Let's get into our Week 8 Coaches of the Week, and we're going to start, as we do, always with our Offensive Coordinator of the Week. Who do you have for us this week, Logan?
This week, the honor goes to Zach Riepma of Alma. They won 67-14 against Olivet last week. Alma had 580 yards, and the craziest thing is they did that on only 54 plays. For most teams, that's only going to be about 3/4 of play, but Alma was so efficient that they got it done on 54 plays over the entire game. And I remember a week ago, our offensive coordinator of the week, they averaged 20 yards per completion. Well, this week, Alma had 19 yards per attempt. They went 16 of 20 passing, so extremely explosive, extremely efficient in the passing game. And then they only faced 8 third downs all game. So they were rarely even getting into third down situations, but when they did, they converted 6 of those into first downs. And they also had 2 receivers with over 100 yards receiving. So it was an outstanding day for Alma over the air, and that earned them our offensive coordinator of the week.
Yeah, Zach's been on the podcast before. We had him in our clinics as well. I'll link both his clinic presentation as well as his past podcast appearance in the show notes. So let's talk to Zach. Our offensive coordinator of the week this week is a returning performer. Just had him on in preparation for the season. Talked to him this past summer, and we aired his episode on preparing for big games back towards the beginning of the season. I'll make sure we link that one in the show notes, but that's the offensive coordinator at Alma College, Zach Riepma. Zach, it's great to have you back here.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Excited to be on here and coming off a great weekend for our players. They did a great job to make my job really easy. So, yeah, excited. Thank you.
I've been really excited to talk to D3 coaches and to be able to recognize them this way. And certainly congratulations to you and your staff. I think this is, something that reflects on everybody in your program.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about just the we over me all the time, being selfless with our players in terms of what your role is and owning your role. If that's being on the sideline and cheering your butt off for a game, or being on the scout team, or being the man in the arena. And so it's something that's a huge part of our program, and couldn't have done it in terms of putting our plan together last week without our entire offensive staff. Coach Couch, our head coach, works with our running backs, does a great job allowing me to be the coordinator and just being the running backs coach from a prep standpoint, and then jumping on and being the head coach on game days. He does a great job with that. Coach Jason Palmatier up front with the O-line, and our run game coordinator. Him and I work really well together. I'm fortunate to be able to lean on him a lot in the run game stuff. For an O-line guy, he's got a great feel for the pass game too. And Coach Teddy Spooner, our wideouts coach, does a great job with those guys, creating explosive plays and getting them to be selfless in terms of who's catching the ball. We were fortunate last week that a lot of guys caught touchdown passes, but they're a very selfless group. And then Coach Matt Yunker with our tight ends, he's done a great job. I think we're going to talk a little bit about it with injuries, guys going down throughout the year, or for the year, getting the next guy up. He's done a great job this year. Alex Dean, assistant O-line coach, Jack Dukes, our assistant running back coach, and Nate Webb is coaching for us as well as an assistant tight ends coach. Those two guys do a great job of doing a lot of the behind-the-scenes work right on the scout team, giving us the look we need. So it's definitely a group effort, preparation standpoint week like we did last week. My job on Saturday is pretty easy, just calling the right plays with the guys we have and letting them pin their ears back and get after it a little.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, foreshadowed it there a little bit. We're getting into talking about personnel today. We look at things, we obviously start with an idea in mind that these are going to be our primary personnel groups. This is how we're going to work. But ultimately, there's things out of our control over the course of the season, and we have to adjust. And sometimes that means looking outside of what was the original plans and fitting what we've been doing to maybe a different group of guys. And I know that's something you guys had to face this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Nate Webb was coming back for a fifth year for us as a tight end. He's an all-region, all-American caliber player, tore his ACL very early. So we're an 11 personnel team almost exclusively for the past 2 years, 11, 12 personnel. So having him go down as the guy we were planning on, counting on having was a loss for us, but it's forced us as coaches adjust a little bit. We brought in some personnel groups that I never thought we would. We carried some true 20 personnel because we have a running back room with some dynamic players. Just trying to get our best guys out on the field. And then actually this last week against Olivet, we came out in true 10 personnel, which we haven't done, I think, ever in my time at Alma. We've messed with some 2 running back things over the years, but not recently, but the 10 personnel thing was a little bit of, we had some tight ends dinged up this week, our wideouts playing at a high level, and it fit into kind of the overarching plan that we wanted to do with attacking some of the space they were giving us on the perimeter. So we put that in, and our wideouts did a great job mentally, just as much as physically going out there and executing, but understanding some new roles and some new little wrinkles being in that position and in that personnel going out and playing at the level they did. It was really fun to watch, really fun to be a part of, and, more testament to Coach Spooner getting them ready and those guys buying into their roles and playing at a high level. So it was good to see, and maybe breathe a little sigh of relief that 10P probably was a good idea last week. There were times in the prep last week of, are we trying to do too much, simple it down a little bit, and it obviously worked out for us over in that last game.
It's not always an easy process when you lose somebody who's big like that and going out and saying, hey, 11, 12 are great for us. You lose that key guy. Now you're switching things. And I imagine a lot of this is handled up front in your install, that your plays and everything that you guys do work across multiple personnel groups and the different formations you have, but it still is an adjustment. It's still an adjustment really for, I think, the coaches probably as much as anything in your thought process and how you're going to attack. So what do you go through? How do you filter out what's going to be the focus? And you mentioned like simplifying things and I guess tightening up that play menu for yourself so that come game day, now when you're faced with not having the guy you usually see out there and completely different going to 10, being able to get into those things and still run, especially this particular game, a very efficient offense.
Yeah, I think some of it too is just in terms of simplifying it. We still have some really good tight ends that have stepped up and really, we've just had to expedite their learning curve a little bit. So we're still have those guys out on the field. I think when you talk about simplifying, that's something that we are very conscious of as we game plan. What is our 11 personnel menu going to be this week? The core of our offense, we can still run, but maybe there's not as many in-game or game plan wrinkles to it just because we have some guys that haven't necessarily seen as many reps or seen as many looks as a player like a Nate Webb, who would have been a fifth-year kid for us. So we simplify it that way a little bit just to set them up to be successful, because clearly we recruited these guys for a reason, and they are good players. So it's not like they got me lining out there at tight end. We got some guys that can get after it some, but just kind of setting them up for success, I think, is a part of it. Being transparent and being willing to have those conversations in the staff room of, hey, can this kid do this skill set? And if not, it doesn't matter how much we like that play, that formation. If we can't set him up to be successful, that's not a good play for us this week in terms of that stuff. And then I think just what isn't in your go-to in terms of those extra personnel groups, we try and fit how much of what we want to do can we fit into those other personnel groups so that it's not a kind of Jekyll and Hyde offense where we get in one personnel group and the defense knows, all right, you're going to get A, B, and C. We're in another personnel group. You're getting D, E, and F. How much of our core offense can we run out of this personnel group? And let's keep it fluid that way so that we can still stay in rhythm and for us get into that the up-tempo stuff we like to be in.
And as I said, a lot of this goes to the planning is on the coaches. So that really translates into how you're going to use your reps in practice too. And I imagine a lot of that and those conversations you have then go into how you're going to script a particular week and the amount of reps that each personnel group gets.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think something that we do is something we do regardless of where we're at, but it's really good for us is we call it a tempo run period. And it's just our core runs out of our core formation, as many plays as we can get. It's an 8-minute period. We're trying to get over 35 reps in that period. So it's a little bit of controlled chaos, but having that period, I think helps. Like I said, for our 11 personnel stuff, we're going to get a lot of our core runs there and get those core looks against their core looks in that period so that then when we do get into more of our situational teams, openers, third down, however you break it down as a coach in your process, that's where we can supplement a little bit with some of our more 10P looks or our 20 personnel looks so that we're still getting adequate reps at the core stuff, but still being able to sprinkle in some of those other personnel groupings so that we are able to be efficient when those are on the field on a Saturday.
I'd like to hear about the tempo run period, the 35 reps in 8 minutes. I think anybody would like those kinds of numbers, but how do you get that done? What's important to the setup of that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of quantity over quality. It's not like we're wasting reps, but it's controlled chaos. We're cranking it up. Our scout team does a great job sprinting out there. It's really just an inside run period, and it ends up being kind of 8-on-8 by the end of it. We'll have just some of our RPO stuff built in just because of what we like to do, but we're, again, just flying around. The plays are coming as soon as the next play is done. The next play is getting signaled in. When we get through a rack, it's usually a 6-play rotation. As soon as that 6th play ends, you'll see a full line change on offense and defense where guys are sprinting off of the sideline. The next group's sprinting up to the ball to get set and heads get popping, and it's fun. I think our guys love and hate it all at the same time because we're definitely cranking it up, but our O-linemen really, I think it simulates the pace at which we want to play at, and just being able to play at that pace when you're tired and think through some of those things helps create some of that muscle memory and those habits. We do that every Tuesday, kind of to kick off our heavy practice. It's always our first team period of the week on Tuesday, and it's been really good for us, like I said, and I think even our quarterbacks get into it. They're sprinting on and off the field, trying to get as many plays as possible as we can.
For the ball, the way you spot the ball, you're coming back to one spot, moving it on hashes. How you guys handling that?
Yeah, just on hashes. So we just script it 20-yard line, left, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, and then the next group goes. So don't work the mechanics element of it as much. That's probably the one drawback that I would say for us with the tempo stuff. Don't have the true finding the spot, getting lined up like you do when we're in rhythm. But I think the pace that we can do it at kind of makes up for that because, I'll be honest, it's probably faster than you're ever going to truly be able to get a playoff in a game. But that kind of creates some of the chaos, too, that I think makes the drill really beneficial for our guys because we talk about being able to block the mess. If we're able to get going as fast as we want, there's going to be times where it's a mess to block. The D-line's not lined up. We catch them in a sub. We get them in the right. We go FTD or whatever it may be. So trying to kind of stimulate some of those chaotic mess situations is a part of that drill, and it has been helpful for us.
And with the scout team, are you just giving them a base defense? Are they getting a card? How are they getting what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, but usually the base stuff we may do obviously depends a little bit what we're seeing, but usually it's a lot of base down stuff, maybe some single gap movements up front, some basic single backer pressures potentially. We have go routes, which has been helpful for it. Honestly, sometimes the pace at which we're going it's kind of a delicate dance for how much of the go route do we need versus just giving our scout guys kind of their base call because it is so base football for what we're looking for them. So we kind of, week to week, it varies kind of what our opponent does in terms of how we truly get it communicated for our scout guys. The other thing that we will do too, just for this period, for the sake of it, is if we get a multiple team, even and odd, we'll kind of block script it. So we'll go 4 plays versus an even, 2 plays versus an odd, or even a full rack of odd and a full rack of even, just so that they're not having to try and sub while we're going at the pace we're going at. So there's a little bit of some organization on that for the scout team to set them up to hopefully give us the best look.
Coach, it was great to have you back here and spend some time with you, learn a little bit about what you guys are doing right now and how you've adjusted through the season. Certainly best of luck to you and the Fighting Scots as you roll through the last few weeks of the regular season here. And again, congratulations.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Love all the stuff you guys are doing. It's always fun to see how this shakes out each week. So keep up the great work. I enjoy it. Thank you again.
Blinds.com is kicking off the savings early with Black Friday mega deals all month long. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can even handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for just one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% on select styles, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Our next honoree is our defensive coordinator of the week. Who do we have for week 8?
This week, that honor goes to Dan Bauder of UW Platteville. Platteville won 17-10 against UW Whitewater last week. Platteville this year has been the highest graded defense across the entire season, and a few weeks ago, their offense earned the honor of offensive coordinator of the week after playing UW La Crosse, who at the time was the top rated defense in the country. And now Platteville is taking them over in my ratings. They're the highest rated defense in the country. They held the Warhawks scoreless in the second half. They allowed under a 50% completion percentage. Only 3 of 13 third downs were converted, and they only forced 1 turnover in the game, but it was in the fourth quarter to set up the field goal that put them up by 7 points at the end of the fourth quarter. And, doing it against a team like UW Whitewater to earn a giant pickaxe traveling trophy earned Platteville and Dan Bauder the defensive coordinator of the week.
Yeah, impressive trophy. If you've seen it in the pictures, I don't know if I've seen a pickaxe that big, but these guys are doing an incredible job. So let's talk to Coach Bauder. We're talking defensive side of the ball now, and joining us is our D3 defensive coordinator of the week, Dan Bauder from Platteville. Dan, first of all, congratulations on being recognized as our D3 defensive coordinator of the week, and congratulations on a tremendous season so far.
Yeah, it's been fun. You get good people in the room, and you got a chance to do some pretty special things, and it's been a fun year so far.
Well, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about those good people, because I know before we got going, you've mentioned some of these guys and how important they are to you.
Yeah, obviously, we've had a coaching change here 3 years ago when Coach Munz took over, and we kept a lot of things the same. We changed a lot of things. It sounds a little bit weird, but he's done a great job of building this staff, and specifically from the defensive side of the things with the guys that he brought in and added to our defensive staff. It's been absolutely incredible. Coach Sheehan, he does our defensive line, and he does an incredible job with the guys in the front, and we do a lot of different things. We're very multiple. Coach Reinhardt is our DB coach, and there's not a better one in the league or in the country. And those two guys make my job so much easier. I've figured out that the less that I do, the better that we are. And those guys have done an incredible job of just getting good players here. They're crazy out on the recruiting trail. And then being able to build the relationships with those guys and get them to do the things that we ask them to do and do them at a really high level. Our defensive staff is awesome. Coach Bacon is a first-year guy. He got done playing. He's a really good player last year for us, all region, all everything type kid, and is honestly a better coach than he was a player. Coach Juarez helps us out with the interior D-line. He's our juice guy. Coach Weidenhiller is a part-time guy, and he comes in and he coaches the corners, and Coach Al has an actual real job and then moonlights as a assistant linebackers coach. And so we've been very fortunate. When I first got here, we had 3 guys on the defensive staff. It was myself, a D-line coach, and a linebackers coach, and that was it. And now we got, I think, like 6 or 7 guys that help out on the defensive side, and most of them are Platteville alums, which they just care a little bit more about this place than us that aren't from around here. It's been awesome to work with the guys and watch them grow, and I continue to delegate and give them more and more things to do, and they continue to impress me and not surprise me, but continue to impress me and continue to take this defense further and further.
Coach, we're going to get into an idea here that you guys utilize, and I think it's something we've seen definitely evolve here. For years here, I've been talking about one-word calls on the offensive side of the ball. Of course, those kinds of things are also very useful for the defensive side, and it's a part of what you guys do in creating a call structure that, one, allows you to get the information in quickly, but two, take some of that workload off of the players of having to decipher and look at every single signal that's coming in from the sidelines, especially important with something like this against up-tempo teams. So we'd love to hear, I guess, the evolution of this and how you guys came to do it, and then we could dig into some of the details of the how you do it.
Sure. I cut my teeth. I started coaching at Wartburg College and very traditional call system. Same thing when I was at Wittenberg University out in Ohio. And when I first got to be able to call it and be the coordinator, I was at Augustana College in Rock Island. And I was the same as everybody else. It was front, stunt, blitz, cover, direction, and you would signal all of those things in from the sideline. I mean, there were times that we were signaling in 5-6 words to the mic, and he was trying to figure it out, right? And when I got here to Platteville, I was still doing that, and I had a chance to sit down with then DC at Madison up there, Wisconsin, Jim Leonard, and they did everything on a single word, and all 3 levels knew what they were doing. And I thought it was absolutely crazy. And he explained to me that it's more about getting the information to the kids and having them put it in buckets. So if we were to say, like, say all of our colors were a man call. Well, if you called black, it meant this to the front, it meant this to the second level, it meant this to the back end. And now that one word has gotten all the information that all 11 guys need, and it allows them to think that this is simple, right? And I think that we would all agree that your kids play a lot faster when they stop thinking, right? So that's where it came from. We have continued to build upon it here. And I would say that probably 90 to 95% of our calls are one word. The running joke now is that we ever have something that is two words, like the kids are like, "Whoa, hey, coach, are you sure you want to do that?" But it's been really good for our guys.
I know we're talking here in season, but we're getting towards the later part of the season. High school football, they're getting into the playoffs. And when I think about something like this, and having been an offensive coordinator, I remember talking to Noel Mazzoni, who's, I think one of the guys who's at the forefront of one-word calls, was they install everything with all their terminology, but then very quickly, especially the things that they're going to do all the time, they'd move it to one words. And I think at this point in the season, there's probably a lot of things, whether you're an offensive coach or a defensive coach, a lot of things that you've been doing all season long that you say, "Hey guys, when we want to call this, it's just this name." But like everything we do, I think, and you mentioned it a little bit here, the buckets, right? That there has to be some kind of a structure to it. Like, I think you mentioned colors, right? So colors would be an example that they're going to fit into the families. And those kinds of things still help keep it clear in your players' minds, those kind of learning cues when you group things together.
Yeah, I tell you, this is not anything revolutionary, but everything that we do is word association. And it's, what does this word mean to me and why, right? And so for the guys in the front, they try to figure out, okay, this word is this is our tight fit. This is our knockback fit. This is our pinch fit, whatever it is, right? And when you start building out the calls for those things, I have to do it too, right? Because I got to put it on the board first and make sure that it works. But when you start putting those things together, now they can lump 3-4 calls all together and say, all of these words are the exact same thing to me. And to an offensive staff that is maybe breaking us down, all 4 of those things look like maybe the same front, but now there's a spin, or there's a coverage, or there's a blitz, or this guy's aligned here. And now all of those look like lots of different play call, right? And so you're able to do that at the different levels of the defensive line. You give them, hey, these are the 3 fits that we play, and these are the words that fit into each one of those 3 buckets. From the second level, they got to know coverage and they got to know the front, right? So these are the 3 covers that we play. These are the words that mean those coverages, right? And what I think what you end up getting from the kids' standpoint is that they just know that the weather terms are this, the colors are that, the coaches' names are this, and they just barely even hear what the actual call is. They just know what bucket it fits into. And now you're able to be really multiple from a call standpoint, but your kids don't feel like they're being mentally taxed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think there's one other benefit to this too. And obviously sign stealing really came to the forefront with what happened with Michigan last year, but that's been going on since people started using signals. I mean,
sure.
What you understand about calls is that there's a methodology for how things go in. You're going to start with your front, your stunts or your blitzes, and then finish with your coverage. And it's very easy, especially because I've seen a lot of defensive coordinators in the past who are the only signaler. On offense, we get all intricate with how many signalers or who's live and whatever. But, there were a lot of defensive coordinators who would, be the lone signaler. And I've seen such simple things as, just the last call being, number or fingers in the air, like cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. I mean, that's pretty easy to decipher. Knowing that you're in cover 3 gives me an advantage, especially if we're a team that's playing around with tempo and sometimes going real fast and getting up on the ball and sometimes looking at the sideline and changing things, right? Like those things become an advantage. The one word calls, again, done right. I mean, you obviously can't just have one guy and one signal. That'll become very apparent too, but it does help you avoid some of those situations where your signs could be picked off. And I'm not talking about anything illegal. I'm talking guys just standing on the sidelines watching what you're doing. When I was a high school coach, it was always my JV guys who played baseball. They learned how to, pick off signals from the pitching coach and they would be really good at it. So those were my guys. Like, I want to know what's going on here, what you see by the end of the first quarter. And a lot of times they did have it dead on. So we have to think about those things. It's the reality of things that happen with our game, the gamesmanship. It's not necessarily illegal when you're just sitting out there doing it. Yeah, filming it, all those kinds of things, that's a different story. But I'm talking about guys who could actually just pick those off right during the course of the game.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny that you bring that up. And I've often thought about this, and you hit it right on the head, right? The offensive staffs have 3, 4, 5 guys, different colored pennies, signs, right? I've always wondered, why is it that the defensive coordinators say, no, I'm going to call it. I'm the only one that's going to call it. Nobody else is going to touch it. I think maybe we're rockheads or something like that, and we can't allow anybody else to touch it. But it is funny. Yeah, I was just thinking while you were going through that, we play some quarters coverage. It's not a secret. But I was just counting up the different ways that I would signal in a different quarters call. And there were 7 or 8 different signs that we would play, or calls that we would play, that would end up being what you would break down on Sunday night as a quarters look. And each one of those is going to be slightly different, whether it's the fit or it's a pressure, it's how we're going to handle 3 or whatever it might be, right? But all of them at the end of it, if you were just looking at coverage, you would say all 7 of those signs are a quarters look. And well, now I'm having a hard time deciding what is he exactly signaling in. So yeah, to your point, you would think at times that one signal or one person doing it is easier, right? Because that's what it is. Okay, well, they played quarters on that one. Well, I may give you a different sign the next time. We may play the quarters again.
Yeah. Well, it's something you need to think about as you're doing this. And I know we use the boards. Eventually, the first couple years, we put them out there, and they were nothing but decoy, I think, for 2 years. And then we started utilizing those in different ways. And like I said, you're just trying to make sure that you're protecting what you're doing and that nobody's getting an advantage of you because you have oversimplified way of getting into the game. Of course, all of it comes down to execution, right? I can remember times coaching high school where I had a quarterback who, if he was near our hash, he was coming over to get the call rather have it signaled in. And I had one school who just anytime that guy would come to our sideline, they send the corner over with him.
Oh, sure.
And I mean, eventually I got pissed and I told the guy, hey, we're running stretch this way. Go tell your buddies. Like,
right.
My guys still got to execute. So sometimes we overthink it maybe.
Yeah, I hear you.
But it is like, I think a very good method with the one word because of the simplification. And instead of having your guys stare for 10 seconds at the sideline and get the whole call, they could get that really quickly aligned, start to see their keys, start to go through their mental processes. And I think that's really what the advantage is.
Yeah. And with the transfer portal and all that good stuff, right? Kids have experienced different styles, right? Different communication styles. And we have a couple of transfers this year that came in and we installed the first call and they're like, well, where's the rest of the call? I said, no, this is just what it is. It's just black. And they're like, whoa, that is going to take some getting used to.
Right.
But I think it's been good. It helps our kids play fast. And again, like we talked about earlier, the faster that your kids can play with the less amount of thinking, I think you're going to see better results typically.
Definitely. Well, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time here. Again, congratulations to you and your staff on being named our D3 Defensive Coordinator of the Week. And best of luck to you and the Pios the rest of the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
With Uber Reserve, Good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
We finish up every week with our head coach and staff of the week. Who gets that honor for week 8?
For week 8, that goes to Coach Cat, Jim Catanzaro of Lake Forest College, who defeated Ripon 66-0 last week. They outgained the Redhawks 618 yards to 96 yards. They were only 4 rushing yards shy of 300 yards in both rushing and passing offensively, and they only had 1 drive the entire game where they didn't score. And then beyond just holding Ripon to under 100 total yards of offense, they also had 3 interceptions, 4 sacks, and 9 tackles for a loss. And this was just an amazing showing by Lake Forest across the board. And to do it against one of their top conference foes like Ripon is just outstanding. Ripon's always a tough out for anybody in the Midwest Conference, and Lake Forest took care of business, left no doubt on Saturday, and that earned them the coaching staff of the week. Congrats to Coach Cat.
Yeah. Coach Cat's doing a great job. He's been on the podcast as well. He also presented at our D3 top 25 clinic last year as one of the top defenses. Coach Butts had moved on to Westminster, but those guys are doing an excellent job. So let's talk to Coach Cat. I'm here with a repeat performer on the podcast, the head coach at Lake Forest, our D3 Hanson Ratings head coach of the week and representing his staff, Jim Catanzaro. Coach, great to have you back here on the podcast, and congratulations on being honored as our D3 head coach and staff of the week.
Oh, great. I really appreciate it, Keith. Great to be back on with you, and I'm glad that it says staff of the week because as the head coach, I might have a little bit of influence, but those guys, they definitely have a much bigger influence on the daily operations than even I do sometimes.
Well, speaking of more the daily operations types of things, I know for a lot of us, we come up with a template for our season and our practices, and for the most part, we stick to those. But from time to time, problems arise. Things need adjusted, and you have to problem solve and figure out how we're going to get those things done. And that's happened to you recently in the way you wanted to focus on how you guys started games, and then the focus became, well, how can we translate that into practice? So we'd love to hear about the issues you saw and how you solved those.
Yeah, we had a couple of games back to back where we had kind of been sluggish coming out in the first quarter, especially on offense. And we're having these 28 and 35-point second quarters, but the first quarter we were making some uncharacteristic errors or maybe aligning wrong or jumping offside some of those pre-snap penalties. And so we were sitting around as coaches, okay, look, we got to fix this. And it's not like we got to give a better pregame talk or something like that because we know those don't have any impact. So it was, hey, we're going to change the way we practice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, our big heavy work days. And so we took 5 minutes from individual and we turned that into a competitive period, good versus good, offense versus defense, which we don't do a whole lot of in season. And we took those 5 minutes. And so on Tuesday, we ran a number of 2-point plays down in the red zone or down the goal line. And it was offense versus defense with a little bit of competitive fire with success and consequence, if you will. And then on Wednesday, what we decided to do is we came out and we spotted the ball on the 40-yard line, said 2nd and 6, get a first down. And thought that was a good way because we always want to get 4 yards on first down, but then it's going to convert. And so calling the stuff that we did, and that was a really high energy, really forced guys to come out of their dynamic warm-up right into a football play, which is something that when you come out from the locker room or the tent or whatever you got at a different place and you're going right onto the field, you don't even go into your dynamic stretch. You don't do any of that stuff when you come back out after the anthem. Stand and then you go out and play, and we felt that was something that we needed to do, and that we started a little bit better this past week. So I'm going to hope that was maybe one of the contributing factors. And I thought it was great to have the coaches buy into it because I'm not sure the defense coaches felt like they needed it, but they felt that the better offense would make for a better game. And so if that helped us, it was going to help them. And so we all kind of bought into that and gave up that 5 minutes of Indy.
Yeah, I know it is about that team effort, the collective, and looking at what both sides need in looking at this. I know I talked to a lot of guys and they emphasize just sticking to routine and the positives around giving players routine. Obviously, you saw the response from them this week, but when you're doing something different like that, I guess you said you saw the energy change a little bit. in terms of helping them understand why they're doing things differently, how did you guys go about coaching that part up, I guess, before you hit the field, installing it, if you will?
Yeah, so we told them in our Monday meeting that we were going to do it, so they were prepared for it. And then we have our practice plans are posted as they walk into the locker rooms every day. We don't want that to be a surprise for them ever. But we told them our why. I've never been coach that felt like he had to hold the reasons and the whys close to his vest and not let people know about it. I thought if people know the whys, they understand it better, they'll have more confidence in it. And I think that's one of the things that we saw. The guys, they understood why we were doing what we were doing. They appreciated that we weren't the coaches. I think that we're just kind of sitting on the, well, this is how we do it, so this is how we're going to do it. I think that in some other respects, they trust the coaching staff that if we come out with something, if we're doing something different, there's a reason. They know one of my philosophies is that there's dignity and simplicity. And so if we're doing something that feels a little more complex or something that feels a little bit more out there in the ways of compared to what we've been doing, that there's got to be a really big reason, because we don't make those decisions lightly. And I think that one of the other things that they know about us is that we have a 5-step process that any decisions we make in our program are fed through, and the captains and the leadership are a part of that process. And so before we unveiled it to the team, they had a chance to weigh in on it. And so they know that that was kind of bought in by their teammates and their team leaders as well. So I think that having all those things combined made it it was calm. There was no concern. It was just something, hey, this is what we're going to do. Let's do it. And let's be good at it.
Yeah, I think anytime you make a change, I think you want to get clarity on why you're doing it, for one, but making sure that it is a good decision. So I'd love to hear about what is that 5-step process that you guys use?
Yeah, we feed it through a 5 steps, and the order they are is, will help us be at our best when we need to be at our best. And we list teams and games, and game 11 you want to get to every year. So if you need to be at your best in game 11 in the playoffs or be in the bowl game for us, you got to do things that'll make us our best then, not maybe in a game that you're expected to win, if you know what I mean. The second thing, does it strengthen our brand and culture? Does it do the things within our brand and who we are as a team and how we want to be identified? Does it support that? Is it simple and sustainable is the third one. And the fourth one, what's the impact on recruiting? And number 5, does the return on investment make sense? Well, in this one, the impact on recruiting is probably not a real big factor on there, but the other things definitely are. If we need to start fast against the top teams in our conference or the teams we may see in the playoffs or whatever, then be at our best when we need to be. Does it strengthen our brand and culture? Absolutely, because being a slow starting team is not the brand or the culture that we want to be identified as. Having urgency in practice is something we take great pride in, and so it feeds into that a little bit. Simple and sustainable. 5 minutes out of Indy, that's simple. It's sustainable. Coming up with what drill, I think we probably spent 25 to 30 minutes deciding what drills we were going to do. Do you want to do a third down one? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? What was the best of how could we have iron sharpen iron and not take away where it's just like a scheme thing? Because the team that we play, our defense doesn't match our opponent's defenses offensively the same way. So how can we do some good on good? And we felt that these were the 2 areas that we could do that on. And then the return on investment. Now we're finding out that the return on investment might have paid really good dividends, and we'll see if it continues as we move through this week and future weeks.
And I imagine that process you used throughout your program. You used it to solve a problem on the field here, but this is something that you guys sit down and you talk about ideas and make a decision to do something. This is the filter you guys are using every single time.
Yeah, this goes from everything from what plays are in the call sheet this week to, what we're going to install. I'm not going to put a play in just to beat one team if it's not a team that we feel like we've got to be at our best to win. We're going to look at how we recruit, where we recruit, things like that. It's going to feed into this too. Does it make sense to invest all this money to go to maybe a camp out east, and the return on investment over the last 4 years of that camp has only been one kid? Well, now that money could be better spent somewhere else. When a player is having an issue that we have to decide about, whether it's a discipline issue, it's going to look at some of this stuff as well. How many the strikes that they get or the grace that they may receive might be influenced by these decisions, and our players understand that.
And I think just like the example you explained on what you were doing with practice, then it really helps the strategy around whatever thing you're focusing on. Again, whether that's how do we start fast to where are we going to recruit this fall, there then becomes a lot of detail because of the way you set this process up.
Yeah, it really is helpful for our guys because it's literally everybody's got a dry erase board in their office. And I don't know that many of us are willing to write on it with permanent marker, but those 5 steps are in permanent marker on my dry erase board. And, when somebody comes in for that meeting, if it they know that if they're going to bring me a problem/solution, whatever it might be, the answer is going to be filtered through those 5 things, and it better fit that to be able to have those conversations. But I think it helps our coaches too. It helps. Okay, I know that Coach Cat's going to ask me, about, I want to install this play, whatever it might be, or I want to install this punt scheme. He's going to ask me these 5 questions. And when I look at those 5 questions, how would I answer them? Because I know he's going to filter it that way so they can come in with their answers, kind of give them the key to the test before they have to take it.
Yeah, I love it. You're right. That is the key to the test. But now they know how to prepare for it. And again, that's, I think, invaluable when, you're a part of a staff and you understand how the head coach is looking at things and how we together as a program are looking at things. I think it just makes it an environment where everybody's on the same page and going in the same direction because there's that understanding. There, like you said, with the players, not being close to the vest with the Y's, the same thing with your staff.
Absolutely. And it goes both ways. That's the positive side of it. But I had an assistant coach, my offense coordinator a couple of years ago, Jim Kiernan, who had been a head coach at Gannon. And one of the things that he came in when he took the job with us, the first thing he asked me is said, I want a list of your 4 pet peeves. Because if you tell me what your 4 pet peeves with your assistant coaches as an assistant coach are, I'll make sure not to do those 4 things. He goes, I can't say that I want to annoy you, but if you tell me that it's coming up with a new play on a Friday or not having a this or that, he goes, you tell me what those are, and I'll make sure that the other coaches don't do them either. And so that was good professional development. You know what? I never see cell phones in our staff meetings anymore because that was always one of my pet peeves because he told everybody. So I don't have to be annoyed by those things.
Yeah, well, I think what you shared in this short period of time with your process would be helpful for a lot of coaches out there. I know I was sitting here, I took notes. So very appreciative of you sharing that. Congratulations again to you and your staff on being named our D3 head coach and staff of the week. And best of luck to you and Lake Forest the rest of the way here in 2024.
Thanks, Keith. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the honor. And all those assistant coaches and players made that happen. Like I told you, as the head coach, I'm just a cog like they are.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write 1 million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Logan, another excellent week. It's great to meet all these guys who are new, revisit with some of them who we've had on the podcast before, and just talk D3 football with you each week. I know, we chat throughout the week about some of the things going on, and it definitely has brought a lot of excitement to the season. And I know the coaches that we bring on here are very appreciative of Hanson Ratings and what you do, and I'm glad that we can honor those guys here.
Yeah, I'm just glad that, we're able to provide the platform for these guys to showcase what they're doing. And selfishly, I also like listening to what they're doing because it helped me coaching high school ball here in Iowa. Just learning from guys who are having success at all levels. There's always something to learn as a coach, and the guys that we have on every week always have some great insights on how they're getting their teams ready to perform week after week.
Definitely. And for our listeners, make sure that you check out coachingcoordinator.com. We do write an article on each coach each week to highlight what they're doing and share some of the stats that made them the pick of the week. Be sure to check out our partners, Vertical Raise, for your fundraising needs, modern football technology for analytics and in-game decision-making, and signature championship rings when you win the championship this year. Links and information to all of our partners can be found in the description and on coachingcoordinator.com in our 10% toolkit. Follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.